Neymar Jr. has played football for 22 years. He scored more international goals than Pelé. He became the most expensive player in the history of the sport when Paris Saint-Germain paid €222 million to take him from Barcelona. He led PSG to 5 Ligue 1 titles and a Champions League final. He broke records that had stood for decades and did it with a smile on his face and a dance in his feet that made him the most watchable player of his generation. There was one man he could not forgive, not because of what happened on the pitch, because of what happened inside a dressing room in Paris. And because of what that man did next, while Neymar watched from the outside. Kylian Mbappé. The man Neymar admitted, in his own words, on his own podcast, that he truly hated more than anyone he ever shared a dressing room with. Not with the hot anger of a tackle gone wrong, with something colder, something that had been building since August 2022 and did not fully settle until Neymar packed his bags and left Paris forever, and even then, did not settle completely. July 2017. Both men at the beginning of something the sport had never seen before. Neymar had just made the most shocking transfer in football history. He left Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez at Barcelona, walked away from the best attacking trio the sport had produced in a generation, and moved to Paris for €222 million to become the undisputed number 1. He was 25 years old. He was the most expensive player on the planet. Paris was his. A few weeks later, PSG signed an 18-year-old from Monaco named Kylian Mbappé, on loan at first. Just a kid. Neymar called him the golden boy. He invited him to dinner. He gave him advice. He took him under his wing the way a senior player does with a teenager he genuinely likes. I always played with him, Neymar said years later. I said he was going to be one of the best. I always helped, talked to him. He came to my place, we had dinner together. The relationship was real. For 5 years, through injuries and Champions League runs and World Cups and Ligue 1 titles, they were the 2 best players at the most expensive club in the world. Then Lionel Messi arrived, and everything changed. May 2022. Mbappé signed a new contract with PSG. He did not have to. Real Madrid had been waiting for him. The transfer was agreed. The announcement was ready. And then, at the last moment, Mbappé turned it down. He signed a new deal in Paris instead. The terms of that deal were extraordinary. Not just in wages, in power. According to reports that emerged months later, Mbappé's contract gave him a level of influence inside the club that no player had ever formally been granted. Input on signings. Priority in commercial decisions. A status inside the building that went far beyond the captain's armband. And what Mbappé reportedly used that influence for, almost immediately, was to push for Neymar to be sold. The man Neymar had called his golden boy. The man he had dinner with. The man he had personally welcomed into a club where he was supposed to be the undisputed number 1. That man had spent the summer trying to get Neymar transferred out of Paris. Neymar stayed anyway. The club could not move him. But something in the relationship did not survive the summer. August 13, 2022, Parc des Princes, PSG versus Montpellier, 21st minute. Mbappé stepped up to take a penalty and hit it straight at the goalkeeper. A few minutes later, PSG were awarded another one. Neymar walked up and picked up the ball. Mbappé immediately went to him, gesturing, making clear he wanted the ball back, that he expected to take the second penalty despite having just missed the first one. Neymar waved him away and scored. The whole world saw it. Not a heated argument in a tunnel. Not a rumor from a journalist with a source. A live, broadcasted, unmistakable public display of 2 superstars. The other criticized Mbappé's behavior directly. Neymar did not post anything himself. He just liked, publicly, where every journalist on earth could see it. Then came the dressing room. According to multiple reports out of Paris, after the final whistle of the Montpellier match, Mbappé and Neymar came close to a physical confrontation. Sergio Ramos, the man who had spent his career making other people's lives difficult, was forced to step between them. The PSG coaching staff staged an emergency team meeting. The entire squad was told to present a united front in public and say nothing. The manager, Christophe de Galtier, told the press there was no problem. "It's fine," he said. "We quickly met the next day to iron out all that." What he did not say was what had needed ironing out. The months that followed were a cycle of public smiles and private war. PSG kept winning matches. Neymar and Mbappé scored goals. They combined in attacks. They stood together in pre-match photographs. Behind the scenes, the relationship was finished. Neymar told people privately that he believed Mbappé was selfish, that Mbappé had let the power go to his head, that the contract had changed him in ways that made it impossible to work with him. Mbappé, for his part, said little publicly. He spoke about respect, about remembering the positives, about how he wanted to focus on what they had built together rather than what had fallen apart. But the club had already made its decision. The summer of 2023, PSG moved Neymar on. Not with a respectful farewell. Not with a tribute to everything he had given the club across 6 seasons. He was sold to Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia for approximately 75 million euros, earning close to £84 million a year in wages. The man who had arrived as the most expensive player in football history left for the Saudi desert. Mbappé stayed in Paris. Years later, sitting with Brazilian legend Romário on a podcast, Neymar finally said it. Not carefully, not diplomatically. The way a man speaks when enough time has passed, that the anger has settled into something permanent. After Messi came, he was a little jealous, Neymar said. He didn't want to split me with anyone. And then there were some fights. A change in behavior. He said it plainly. I had my things with him. We had a little fight. What Neymar called a little fight was a feud that had required the club's senior officials, its captain, and its entire squad to manage in real time over the course of a season. But the way Neymar told it on that podcast, there was something in his voice that was not anger anymore. It was something colder than anger. The specific tone of a man who had watched the person he welcomed, mentored, and befriended use the power that welcome helped create to push him out of the city he had chosen above everything else. That is not a little fight. That is a betrayal. The Al Hilal chapter lasted 18 months. It produced 1 goal, 3 assists, and a succession of injuries that made it impossible to pretend the move had been anything other than what it looked like. In January 2025, Al Hilal terminated Neymar's contract by mutual consent. The club's coach, Jorge Jesus, said Neymar could no longer perform at the level we are used to. Neymar flew home to Santos, the club he had left at 21 as a teenage sensation, the club that had launched him into Barcelona, and then Barcelona had launched him into PSG, and PSG had launched him into the most expensive transfer in history. That club was now his last option. He signed. Santos announced record social media growth. The president spoke about commercial gains. Neymar came on as a substitute, converted a penalty in a shootout, and was sent off in his next start for handling the ball. Santos lost. Meanwhile, Kylian Mbappé had left PSG the summer after Neymar, signing for Real Madrid at last. He won the Champions League in his first season. He scored in the final. He stood on the stage in the Santiago Bernabeu with the trophy Neymar had spent his entire career at PSG trying to win, the trophy PSG had built their entire project around, and lifted it as a Madridista in his debut season. Neymar watched from Santos. What Neymar hated about Kylian Mbappé was never simple. It was not the hot hatred of a man who lost a fight to a worthy rival and respected the result. It was layered, built across years and arriving in a form that no football pitch could resolve. The dinner invitations Neymar extended to a teenager who would later try to force him out of the club, the penalty Mbappé wanted back after missing in front of a full stadium from a man who had already been quietly undermined for months, the dressing room that came close to physical violence over a football match in August, because the real argument was about something that had been happening since May and would not be finished until Neymar was gone. Mbappé had not simply beaten Neymar in a competition for status. He had beaten him while accepting the dinners and the mentorship and the goodwill, changed the relationship when the power arrived, pushed for his exit, and then watched him leave for Saudi Arabia while staying in Paris to eventually get the move to Real Madrid that had always been the destination. Neymar said publicly, more than once, that there had been fights, that Mbappé had been jealous, that the behavior had changed. Mbappé said he had a lot of respect for Neymar. He said it on the way to the Bernabeu. The record books say Kylian Mbappé and Neymar played together at PSG from 2017 to 2023. They say PSG won 5 Ligue 1 titles in that time. They say Neymar scored 118 goals in 227 appearances. They say Mbappé became the club's all-time top scorer before leaving for Real Madrid on a free transfer. What the record books do not say is what it costs to mentor the person who ends your chapter. To give someone dinner and advice, and a nickname, and 5 years of partnership. And then watch them use the power that partnership helped build to push you out of the city you chose above Barcelona. Neymar never called it what it was in full. He never needed to. He sat on a podcast with Romario and described a change in behavior and a little fight, and a man who became jealous. He said it in the tone of someone who had already accepted that the sport was not going to give him the moment that resolved it. No rematch in Paris. No Champions League final together. No clean answer to the question of what happens to the man who built the table when the man he invited sits at the head of it. Mbappé lifted the Champions League at Real Madrid. Neymar signed for Santos until the end of the year, with an option for 6 months more. Cold, permanent, unresolved, the way the deepest hatreds always are. If you want more deep dives into the untold psychology behind football's greatest rivalries, subscribe. The best stories are still coming.